One of the things that has come to my attention recently is that there is a marked ignorance of the scriptures among Christians. This was pointed out to me at a recent conference I attended. And as I think about this, I'm sorry to say that I have to agree with this. I was taught things that sadly I find are somewhat lacking now, and I ask myself the question, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to communicate the scriptures to other people? Because God has gifted me in terms of teaching. How am I going to do this? Well, I'm hoping that by using present day technology, then I might be able to do that. One of the things that I find is no longer taught is respect for elders, respect for older people. And yet it's commanded throughout the scriptures. It's not optional. God is pleased with younger people who honour those who are older than themselves. As a young man, I was taught to respect my elders. And I say to young people now, if you don't respect your elders, then you cannot expect to be honoured yourself or respected when you too are older. Indeed, you might find you have to suffer the consequences. And God is not pleased with you if you don't obey his word in this area. So the first verse I'm going to quote is from Leviticus chapter 19. You shall rise before the grey-headed and honour the presence of an old man, and fear God. I am the Lord. See, these things are linked. A reverence for the older people is a reflection of how you see God. If you honour older people, then you're honouring God. You have fear of God. But if you don't, it seems to me anyway, that you don't really fear God. You're deluding yourself. And God will hold that against you. Beware. I have experienced older people whom I thought hadn't learned the lessons they should have. And that did not mean that I had to disrespect them. Indeed, I had to keep my counsel and be gentle with them. I'm going back to when I was younger. Equally so, though, there were older people whose life experience I benefited from. And I think that's the point of it. You benefit from listening to older people, from their life experience, particularly as they have spent many years walking with God, learning from him, and you too need to learn from them. You go on and on learning about God, becoming more and more like him. And that's what honouring older people is all about. Now let's have another look at another passage. This is from 1 Timothy chapter 5, and it's verse 1. Bear in mind, Timothy was a young man whom Paul was training, and Timothy himself had to address older people within the church. Paul says to this, do not rebuke an older man, but exhort him as a father, younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, younger women as sisters, with all purity. So in other words, he was not to rebuke older men. He had to encourage them. You may indeed think that an older man is wrong, but you have to encourage them. You have to be positive, because if you rebuke them, you're showing disrespect, especially as you're the younger one. You are, in some respects, the junior partner. You are the one who's still learning, even if you're a church pastor. One of the things I remember about my church pastor was that he said that when he came to the church as a young man and he was faced with all these older men, he had to remember that all of them had experiences of life that he did not have. And in that respect, he was fulfilling what this verse says. God commands it. It's not optional, and it's got nothing to do with your feelings. If you don't feel like it, tough. God is telling you to honour older people, encourage them, exhort them, and by doing so, you build relationships. You build positive, harmonious, deep relationships. And you yourself, as a younger person, will learn from it and benefit from the experience of older people, perhaps even older people that you might find rather difficult. And finally, I look at 1 Peter chapter 5, and from verse 5, likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive to one another, and be clothed with humility, for God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walketh about like a roaring lion. Now, again, through Peter, God is saying to younger people, submit to your elders. And it doesn't mean the sort of elders you have in church, which is a position in the church. It means older people. It clearly means that because it also refers to the younger people. That's how I know it means elder in the sense of an older person. I myself am now an older man. And I can look back and say that as a young man, I'm glad that I was taught to respect my elders. Not only was I taught it in church, I was expressly taught it within the family. Families these days don't necessarily say that. And we have so many broken families that I think it must be difficult for young people to respect older men because they often don't know their fathers or don't know them very well. And they don't respect their older women either. In fact, they think they know it all. They think that their little life experience is what there is, and what they understand is so much more progressive, to use a modern word, and that the things that were in the past, well, they don't apply now. Well, that's not how the world really works. These things in the scripture are to stand for all time. God has commanded them. It's part of his order. You have to respect older people. It doesn't say that you have to agree with them. One of the things I employed when I came across an older man whom I found very, very difficult was a verse that said, "A gentle answer turns away wrath." And there he was, ready for me to pick an argument with me. And instead of rising to the bait that he set for me and the thing he said, I gave a very gentle, thought-out reply. I was ready for it. And he calmed down. You know, he was ready for a fight. And suddenly all the energy that he was going to lash out upon me was gone, because I treated that man with some respect. I didn't agree with him. And looking back now, even at this distance, all these years later, he was still wrong. But I didn't have the right, as a young person, to stand up to him and say, "You are dead wrong. La 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 la." The gentle answer worked. And now I find that younger people don't necessarily always, to a man or woman, respect people of my age. Indeed, they expect us to conform to them. Well, we have life experience and they have very little of it. Now, that's not to say that they don't have any life experience. Young people today suffer some life experiences I'm glad that I avoided. There's far more family breakdown now than there was when I was young, and there's all sorts of temptations that I didn't have to face or was shielded from. So there has to be, in that respect, a mutual respect. But the onus is on the young people to respect their elders, and it starts in the family, because the Bible tells us, children, respect your parents. So your parents are the first older people you have to respect, and then other older members of family, and then older members of society. Don't treat people with contempt. And in the church, you have to treat older people with respect. They have known the Lord a lot longer than you. They have life experience of God you don't have yet. And you can learn from that. If you decide, I am not going to respect them, I'm not going to have anything to do with the older people, you are damaging the fellowship. And church is all about fellowship, sharing with one another. Sometimes I do learn from younger people. As a young man, I remember being in a house where we had a Bible study, and there was an older couple there, and the man said to younger people that he felt that even as an older man, he still learned from younger people. And I thought, he has got a good attitude. And when I'm older, when I'm his age, I want to be like him. And I've tried to make that practice. Yes, I do teaching. But from time to time, a younger person will say things to me that I need to hear, so I'm up to date on where they are at. And I think that particularly at school now, they face tremendous opposition. When I was their age, they thought you were a bit odd if you were a Christian. But now it's tremendous opposition, active opposition within the education system that doesn't appreciate Christians and their values and morality. Indeed, we live in a society where not only is sin tolerated, it's celebrated. That's the issue that young people face now. I didn't have to. When I did, sin was not celebrated. It was tolerated, it wasn't celebrated. But let me, in closing, still emphasize to you, respect your elders. God tells you to respect your elders. Talk to us. Enjoy fellowship with us. And together we will learn from one another. And God will bless all of us within the fellowship for doing so. And remember, God doesn't say honour your elders if you feel like it. He's saying honour your elders. Period. That's it. It's got nothing to do with your feelings. God expects your obedience whether you feel like it or not. And in so doing, He is building character into you, making you conform to the character He wants you to be. In other words, He is making you like Himself. Your character reflects God if you honour your elders.